Let's now start our fourth and last panel discussion on Spain as a talent hub with a wealth of opportunities to learn and grow. The panel will be moderated by Wim Zwanapoel. Wim is a freelance lecturer and a business consultant at 3Power. He graduated from the Ghent University and he holds an MBA from IE. He worked as a lawyer and as an in-house counsel for Belgian companies. He has 17 years of experience in education training and coaching, specializing in cross-cultural management and communication. Since 2022, he is also a freelance business consultant in renewables on behalf of green investment funds. Wim, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much, and thanks for coming, everybody. We are a very densely populated panel, so we will talk about the topic of Spain as a talent hub and an educational hub. I'll first introduce the panelists. So first of all, we have Lago, telecommunications engineer, also with a master's in international finance from IEB, Instituto de Estudios Bursátiles. She's very importantly a professor in blockchain for 4 years now. And she's also the innovation director of the Digital Assets and Web3 Lab at Thornton. Previously, she was working in Pricewaterhouse and also in Ernst & Young. I think this was a very important element as well. You are also involved in activities to promote women in STEM careers and in finance, because it's true that STEM and finance, it's gradually improving, but it's still often male-dominated. And she also won an award last year, Female Leader of Year in FinTech. So I think she will be able to provide very interesting insights on training and providing blockchain and FinTech talent. Second, we have Geoffroy Gerard, graduate from the Université Catholique de Louvain, also with an executive MBA from IE. He's a Belgian professional, so we have quite a few Belgians here in this panel. Belgian professional with 20 years of experience in higher education, non-profit management and communications. Currently, he is the director of IE Foundation and Vice Dean for Strategic Alliances. In these roles, he's fostering strategic partnerships and driving impact. So he will be able to provide us very interesting educational insights on training and hosting international digital talent in Spain. Third panelist, David Gonzalez. He's a partner of corporate law and M&A at Gomez Sevo, and highly renowned. I would call that an international Spanish law firm, with also offices in Brussels, offices in the UK, in the US. You spent also a couple of years in the US, in London. He specializes in mergers and acquisitions, restructurings, private equity, and venture capital, particularly advising investors in high-growth companies with a substantial number in the high-tech environment. So he holds a degree from ICADE. He completed the Diploma de Estudios Avanzados at Complutense, and he also has postgraduate studies at IE. He will be providing key insights on digital investment and digital talent in general. Our fourth panelist is Guillermo Palacios, also holding an executive MBA at IE. He started to work as an IT consultant, but then he gradually transitioned into business development country manager roles for several European digital startups and scale-ups. Very interesting to know is he's born in Spain but educated in Belgium. He's also coaching and mentoring young entrepreneurs in their initial steps, and he invests himself in IT-based startups. And importantly, he is a co-founder of Quantum Innovation, and in that capacity he will be able to tell us a little bit more about pools of autonomous autonomous IT professionals that work remotely from Spain for companies based outside Spain. Also, and that's very, and I'm aware of that, Guillermo, that's very recent. You just started to work for Enisa. You're still onboarding, but that's very important because it's a public company and they help with the financing and the certification of startups, okay? And then fifth, straight from Malaga, and we already had this morning Laurence, who spoke very highly of Malaga as a very interesting hub. Matthias has been working for 10 years now with TUI. I would call that the most important tour operator. You've been working also in that capacity 5 years for Agioglobal and also a few other companies. You're specialized in IT functional improvements and introduction of new systems and practices. He worked for a variety of organizations in banking, retail, manufacturing, and the travel sector in the areas of software development, operation, cloud, DevOps, etc. So he will be able to tell a little bit more about nearshoring services, software delivering, system support, hiring local talent, and also why Malaga is an interesting location in this respect. So now we get a quick introduction to the topic. We already mentioned it before, but there are three, I think, with the panels this morning, there are three important pillars. Spain, I would say a decade ago, it sort of started as an emerging player in the overall or in the global technology sector or industry. And there are three important pillars for that. One is you need somehow an educational hub, you need a talent hub, and you also need somehow an ecosystem of startup scale-ups, which are often embedded in incubators and accelerators. So we will talk mainly about educational hub, and we will talk also about educational hub and about talent hub. We already mentioned, and that was a person from South Summit, Nacho. He already mentioned there is it is a very attractive place for international talent, but there is also a high presence of local talent in Spain. So the attractiveness is because of a whole number of reasons we mentioned this morning about quality of life, of course, about digital infrastructure, about it's well connected, Spain. And we typically always talk a little bit about the same cities, Madrid, Barcelona, Valencia, Malaga. So they're really well connected. And so it is a very attractive place. So but also if Spain, the strength of Spain as a talent hub, that's of course fueled by the educational, I would say, the educational infrastructure. In Spain, it is important. You have, on one hand, the business schools, but you also have the polytechnicas, and that's very important. In all those cities I mentioned, you have the polytechnicas, and that's really a hub for digital talent, and over the last 10, 15 years. In addition to the business schools and universities, you also have what I would call the internet schools. 10 years ago, they started with ISDI. They started with UTAT. They started with also, I think there's another one, the Valley. They also started with data science boot camps. Also IE has a data science boot camp. Most probably they're already working on AI boot camps now. And I think that's very important because if you want to have if you want to be considered as a talent hub, you also need to train and educate that talent, and that's very important. So I get in this respect, I get to the first question, and it is as follows. Can Spain be considered as an international hub for talent and digital talent in particular? And I would like to ask that first to David.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, I think it can only be considered a tech hub. It was a tech hub even before COVID. It's true that there's a new trend Now more people talk about Spain, but it's not something new. You see the ranking of the top 10 tech hubs in Europe before COVID. You always find Madrid and Barcelona competing with London, Berlin, Stockholm, and other cities. So we were lucky enough to have two cities fighting each other. That has very bad things on one side, but very good things in terms of making the two cities very dynamic and make it then attractive for investors, for founders, for startups. And that happened before this new trend. So if we now add the Nomad movement, we add the startups law, we add the new tax scheme, we add the Nomad visa, we see the trend that we are seeing right now that is allowing not only Madrid and Barcelona competed across Europe and with other international hubs, but also Malaga, Valencia, also I would say Bilbao, Canary Island, even Seville and Granada are trying to push Malaga a little bit in the south to find their space. So it's nothing new. It's a new trend, and it's a new trend that is gonna, I think, is gonna continue. And I would say definitely it's not a hub. I think the person from South Summit said it was a hub because of the location. It was very important. The door to Europe, the direct connection to Latin America, and the influence on the north of Africa. So that means you are a hub by itself, Spain, because of the location. But in the tech, all the digital space, with all this new regulation, with all the attention that the country had put in attracting Nomad, I think we are. A good point is that we need to distinguish definitely Nomad from expats. I think when we talk about how interesting Spain is, probably we are talking about the two different groups. And also you see the rankings about the most popular cities for nomads. That changes. You go to Google, there's, I don't know, 20 different lists. For some of them, if you ask people in the early 20s, you will find Bali in Indonesia, Thailand, and you will see Canary Island. Someone said Fuerteventura is amazing. But if you go through more people in the late 20s or early 30s, you will find other cities, and you will find Madrid, Barcelona, and you're gonna find different cities because for that people, surfing is not essential. They are starting thinking about their professional careers and all the things where Fuerteventura is pretty small, and your ability to get a cultural life and other things, and in terms of health and so on, it's far from Madrid, Barcelona, and other cities across the world. So we are definitely at the hub. We have a place for many different profiles. So I think it's really, really good. So we have the ability to attract different profiles. And we have an administration at a federal level and at a state level, different administration that are putting a lot of attention on that and a lot of incentives. And I think we are definitely now an interesting hub for everybody.
Okay. I would like to ask, Geoffroy, you work in a very international environment. IE, in the meantime, became a very international school with most of the programs are taught in English. You also need a lot of international faculty. So have you came across some very specific challenges to attract them to Spain?
So yes, well, is this going? No, this is not working. No. Let's see. Here we go. Yes, I would say first one point from what we discussed before. So we talked about digital nomads as being kind of a sporadic decision of several months to establish a thing. When we talk about education and we talk about that talent, actually it's normally long investment in time. So when you decide to go overseas to make your studies, where you decide where you're gonna start your career and everything, you normally plan ahead. But that also mixes with actually a new phenomenon that we see in the new generation. The Gen Z are really more interested by experiences than what we had maybe in our careers when we decided to go to university. And that shift of living experiences and mixing experiences professionally with your passion and what we just discussed about the Bali and the destination for surfing or whatever when you're a young age, it makes a lot more weight in the decision. No? So, but like I think that when we talk about talent and when we talk about education, we normally look for a long time experience. But coming to your point, actually, I think that competing, so we all compete, and actually Spain has been building himself as a great pool for talent and for education because of competitiveness. Like, I mean, when we talk about what IE is, I could not say that IE is what IE is without ESA, without ESADE, without many business schools in Spain that actually have been a source for great talent. No? And I think that competitiveness at the same time actually places us as a hub for talent for international. And at the same point, and going to what you were asking, when we actually recruit faculty or when we recruit talent overseas, we also compete. And in competitiveness in higher education, there is one big factor among others, which is fundraising. Fundraising in the US or in UK enables actually universities to give major source of funding that enable them to attract the best talent, either by scholarships or either by great grants for academic and faculty attractiveness. No? So whenever we want to compete, and as institution higher education, we compete directly with those universities in order to attract our faculty or talent, it is a necessity to make yourself attractive. And that's where the mix of Spain is a great asset to have, because people want to relocate in Europe, people want to come to Spain as a place to grow their family, to do their things, but that's not always easy to find the attractiveness economically to come, to get as covered in terms of scholarship for your education or either in a really interesting package in order to be attractive. So I think that we're doing a great job over the years. We've attracted many international faculty in all our institutions and in the top higher education institution in Spain. But it's true that we need to recognize that we need to think better our funding for the future because, well, this is not a habit in Europe.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. Now we talk a little bit about education, etc. Companies are often complaining, and I think that's even more for the digital sector, the gap you can have between academic knowledge and, of course, the needs of that industry. And the technology sector is something that evolves very quickly. So my question as well is, who are better players to bridge that gap? Is it the universities or that the business schools? And I would like to ask that question, or address that question first to Carol.
Thank you, Wayne. No, it's okay, I have one here.
You're privileged.
That question is very interesting because nowadays, business schools are the one in charge of that, in my opinion. But it should be from the university. So there's a lot of things going on, like hackathons or just small competitions that companies are bringing to universities, so the students can join and can see how can develop their projects or their ideas in a, let's say, in a simple way, so they can start looking at how the working environment and the working needs are being placed. But for a long time, business schools, they have had to develop all those skills, which some programs that might be quite expensive or not. It depends. Now there's a lot of online programs that can also help, and they're less expensive in that way, and they are supposed to, let's say, put you in the proper place to work. So the students, sometimes they think that these business schools have to help them find a job. And that's also, for me now, working at IEB, it's a challenge because I do try to help when the students, they want to go, let's say, work with blockchain and digital assets and all that, so I can do something if it's in my hands. But otherwise, they go to career advice the department and so, and it's very difficult. And if I change this to when I was taking my master's degree 8-9 years ago, I took the international finance. So there were half of the people were from here, from Spain, and the others were from abroad. And of course, I could stay here because I'm Spanish. My parents are Spanish, so I had the double citizenship since I was a little girl. But my friends, they wanted to stay, and they didn't know the tools on how to stay here, at least to try how is it work in Spain, which is super attractive, but they couldn't, and they were looking for companies to sponsor their visas. And there's a lot of things that nowadays you can actually do, and I don't even know if that was possible before. And I think that within the business schools and universities, they need to have a bit of advice about these situations. You know, it's like if you can, let's say you know someone, oh no, this student is leaving because he couldn't find a place to sponsor his visa. Oh no, but you have this alternative. You have but nowadays I believe that the students are doing their own research about it, and maybe they leave because they don't know all the benefits that they have.
Would you like to add something in that
Well,
respect?
I think it really depends on the talent and the way that they can stay. And I'm really amazed sometimes to see, for example, we have scholarships at the foundation for African students. And we get every year students from Ghana, from different countries coming. And I'm amazed to the year after, normally they graduated, and you would say, okay, well, they're back to the country. And actually, you have an alumni reunion, and you see them again, and they have actually found a job in Madrid. So it's not impossible for Ghana students to find a job in Madrid. It's a question of talent, a question of what you bring, and the way that you think. And I think that is something. There is another question that I think that you raised before. So you mentioned the Polytechnique, and you mentioned the importance. You mentioned the business school as kind of like, okay, that's where business school have been able to push people to be more entrepreneurial, to be maybe more driving into entrepreneurship and maybe connecting with the digital nomades. But actually, we have a huge, huge challenge as Europe in terms of innovation, and especially in industrial innovation. So we've seen the startups ecosystem fly away from Europe to the US or to Asia for many years. But we have actually one of the best academic research labs in the world in Europe. So actually I would say like Europe has more researcher per meter square than any other places in the world. The thing is that those researchers don't go from the lab to creating companies. Yeah. And that is something that the university has to face, but that also Europe as a commission, and I know that it's in the plan of the 28th regime, it's on the new plan of Ursula von der Leyen as president of the European Union. They actually created a new commissioner for startups, which had never been before, and also on top it's run by a woman, which is double success guaranteed. And that is something that we really need to face. We need to face that Europe, if we really want to survive, and not be only the nice, good place where we have sun, good food, relaxing place where, you know, a startup, a founder from the US come and buys a winery to finish his days. Actually, we need to be creating innovation here. Yeah. And if we create innovation here and we create tech innovation, we are able to attract talent. And when we attract talent, we actually will also influence more and more a movement around the digital nomads and whoever wants to come and enjoy our countries, but at the same time know that they can develop something meaningful, which is at the moment lacking a little bit in that.
Yeah, and I think that's something
so
we... Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so I think that maybe there's hope for that because of now talking as a person who works in the technology and innovation side, regulation wasn't helping in general to build startups in here and to develop some special services around fintech, around digital assets and tokenization and so on. And there's a lot of regulation that now is opening and providing the options for the companies to be registering here, for the startups and for all that. So maybe there will be more space for people to actually put in place their talent in here in Spain.
My colleagues probably have things to add too. I don't want to monopolize the time, but we can engage that.
I would like to jump, if that's okay, because then I would like to address this as well to Guillermo. Yeah. about entrepreneurship, because you have a wealth of experience in that respect.
Yeah, actually, I think we have opened very good topics about entrepreneurship, and I think this reminds me to the eternal question and dilemma about this topic: is either an entrepreneur is made or is born, no? And I think we have to reflect in this question. And from my perspective, I'm more of the philosophy that thanks to education and to training, we can all become an entrepreneur. We may become a good entrepreneur or a bad entrepreneur, or maybe a successful or unsuccessful entrepreneur, but at least we enter an ecosystem, okay? And as we are in Spain, I like to make the analogy with football or whatever sports. I think all that we are here, we are potential players of any sport, and it's just a matter of training ourselves on doing that. And then the outcome can be that we are good sportsmen, bad sportsmen, successful or not successful. This depends on the training and on the competition afterwards, no? But the key thing that I want to highlight here is that we have entered an ecosystem. And after that, if we continue with the analogy of the sportsmen, we can become maybe a sports mentor or a psychology for sportsmen or a coach or whatever. We are starting to build this ecosystem, no? So coming back to entrepreneurship, by training, we start to plug the correct mindset on the people and the correct soft skills, such as adaptability, flexibility, risk averse, non-risk averse people, pivoting, etc., all these soft skills that I think I promote a lot. And thanks to that, we start to build the ecosystem. And when the ecosystem is done, startups start to pop up, and later on, scale-ups start to pop up and to consolidate, and unicorns come later. And I think that in Europe, this was highlighted before, this is a totally pending topic that we have.
And it's recent.
Is the mindset change, more than even the regulation or whatever. We are always finding excuses, but I think that definitely is the mindset, no?
I think in Europe is very recent. Here in Spain, the entrepreneurial activity really started with the big financial crisis. It was that we were almost forced to start to become all entrepreneurs, etc. And in that respect, I think we can only admire that American mindset of spin-offs, and that they foster that also at university. Because here it's true that business schools, they have that important focus on entrepreneurship, and that perhaps is a little bit lacking at university still. Yeah. It is changing everywhere in Europe, but I think there's still a long way to go. But I think it's very important. Now we talk about, we mentioned about entrepreneurship, the importance of that. And this morning we mentioned as well that Spain could become, already is, or could become an important hub for fintech and blockchain. I would like to ask that for you, because you're the true expert.
Actually, it's already a hub for blockchain, digital assets, and Web3. There's a lot of events going on in Spain that people from other countries, they come here now, not only across Europe or Asia, but also people from Latin America is coming here to work, which is also a good opportunity not only for entrepreneurs but for digital nomads to work as freelancers for those companies. And also there's a consortium name called Alastria, which is a blockchain-based one. More than 500 companies are members in it. They have now up and running 3 different blockchain networks to, let's say, upload or put different projects on this network, which is already built. And there are opportunities for people with, let's say, Solidity, JavaScript, and all the backend skills that people should have. And one other thing that I wanted to mention is that Comunidad de Madrid, they launched 2 years ago a blockchain cluster at Tres Cantos, and there's a big hub over there. Not only Alastria is only a member, but there are also a lot of banks and financial institutions, payments institutions, and fintechs that are now working over there. There's a co-working space. There's a lot of opportunities. So I think we are
in the right direction.
Yeah.
Very good. David, I remember you were also once involved in a transaction in that respect in relation to fintech and blockchain. What do you see a little bit as a challenge, but perhaps in general, to attract these professionals to Spain?
I mean, the challenge. So I guess someone explained this in a previous panel, but because Spain has such a large bank and strong banks, probably legally Santander is the largest continental bank in, or the largest bank in continental Europe, which is something that shouldn't be, since Spain is not the largest economy. So we were expecting a German bank there. So they are what's competing with BNP in France, but definitely largest but German banks, Italian banks. And we have BBVA, Caixa, so they are very strong. That's an opportunity for the fintech industry because we are a very bankable society where our banks are strong because we are very used to work with banks. I think our banks are very ahead of other jurisdictions in terms of digital banking. They adopted the digital capabilities sooner than other countries. And I live in New York and I live in Sao Paulo, in Geneva. And my experience with digital banking was always worse than the one I have in Spain. And they are supposedly very advanced economies, very sophisticated places. So that's more as an opportunity, but it's a challenge because they occupy a very big space. So for a small fintech startups, it's completely to compete with such a strong players on the other side. So in terms of Nomad, we have two things. Those banks are always trying to go for the next step. In terms of adapting talent, they're always watching for professional in Web3, crypto, blockchains, because in the future of finance, even if they support it or not, it's going to be there. So it's a question. It's a matter of timing. It's not a matter of is it happen or not. So there's a lot of spaces for new talent to come to the largest Spanish bank, and they are competing worldwide. In Turkey, in Latin America, in Central Europe. So I think there are good places to work in terms more of the ecosystem, in terms of how making Spanish fintech companies to succeed. We have good examples, but we have also other companies that have struggled in the past, like Binex, Pyck, so companies that were doing well. They were quite popular, but at some point they couldn't make it, or not at the level we or everybody was expecting. So we have challenge, and probably the challenge is how you compete with the large banks, how you incentivize more senior people. One of the issues I see is that it's quite easy to attract young nomads because of the weather, because of blah, 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 but about the senior guys, so the people with the family, with the high salaries and so on, how you attract those profiles. And in the fintech industry, we compete with the banking industry, which is one of the better paid industries worldwide. You really need to go for the senior guys with the high salaries, and then we have all the challenges that we're explaining about those salaries, career, global positions, and so on.
Thanks a lot. Very good point. I will change a little bit the topic because for now we were talking about attracting talent. I would like, and I want to address a question to Matthias, also hiring local talent. So I know you have quite some experience with a tour operator that chose Malaga as a destination for support, for support functions, for nearshoring services. So I would like a little bit your input in that respect.
Okay, I took my secretary with me to help me a little bit. I'm growing old, so I'm forgetting things. When we start looking, let's say 10, 15 years ago, from within TUI to enlarge our, let's say our IT staff, we were looking at Spain, and especially we were looking at Spain because, let's say, in 2013-14, we were lacking in Belgium and in Netherlands and even in France. We were lacking people knowing the older technologies. Sometimes people forget that there is still COBOL in this world, and there's still DB2 next to AI and other things, which I respect. But as a company, you need resources. So when we were exploring the market at that time, we were seeing that in Spain the salaries were a lot lower for, let's say, a same quality that we could get into Belgium. So that's why we not only therefore, but also because there was a lot of unemployment in Spain, because of the crisis of 2008, where a lot of people working for the big banks in Madrid migrated to the south to be in an environment which was less expensive and easier to live. So we found there a great pool, and we built that up to let's say 20 people for helping us doing our daily business, renewing system, but also creating new applications. Okay, so nowadays the salary, I wouldn't say it's so much lower comparable for the same skills in Belgium. But what we see here is that we see a lot of availability still of talent. Talent, people who have a good education, who have decent knowledge, who most of the times speak decently English, because don't forget, in the daily life, you still need to have, let's say, a decent level of English to be able to communicate and to work together, okay? So if you manage these people very well, what I think we did, to give you an example, last year we have a retention of 99%, one person left in a whole year, so we can retain talent. We also oblige these people to we prepare a career plan from them, and we make sure that they can, 20% of the time, they can study and they can learn other things in other teams. So they are not really stick only to COBOL, but they can also learn other things. So we have a real, I think, a very good HR management around to be able to keep the people, which for me, in the contrary of digital nomads, we are going from one place to another, but for us, retaining talent is extremely important, extremely important. The knowledge of these systems, if an IT person goes away, we lose 6 months. If someone new comes in, we need 6 months to get him on the same level as probably, potentially, the person who left.
That's also what I mentioned this morning already, the importance of upskilling, reskilling. And that's, of course, you need to do that in a sort of a structure where you invest in that talent and you want to retain that talent, of course. Are you solely working with Spanish local employees?
That's something, and thanks for the question. What we are doing now, and that's why I said there is so many opportunities in Spain, is because we are also recruiting a lot in the south of America. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of Spanish-speaking people there. Normally they speak quite good English also, and they are willing to come to Spain. So, and also on immigration, we can help the people easily. We have some juridical things, some legal guys or girls who are helping us to bring over these people and to lodge them. We are not, at least in the TUI scope, we are not going for, let's say, digital nomads for 3-4 months. We have now people working 10 years for TUI, and they don't even know internally TUI, sometimes they do not even know that they are not TUI employees, but they are employees of a Spanish company. Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned also, and that's something I would like to address to Guillermo. 10 years ago, it's true there was an important gap in remuneration between countries more up north in Europe and Spain. That is getting more narrow. But you also mentioned it's important about the availability. There's certain profiles which in Germany, in the Benelux, in Denmark are very, very difficult to find, a very specific type of developer. And that's perhaps something I would like to address to Guillermo. Why are local digital professionals attractive to European firms?
No, I wanted to add also to your exposure, Matthias, that also, regarding the question, that also we have to consider the nearshore concept versus the offshore concept that 10 years ago, I think the offshore was the main reason and the main option for many Central European companies in terms of hiring cost-effective digital talents. And now the nearshore is one strategic option. And the main advantages are first the cultural proximity, cultural alignment, we can say, the proximity, also the time zone alignment, and those factors have revealed at the end that they reduce a lot the transaction costs that previously you had with the offshore, no? And as soon as also the wages have increased in India, for example, in these places, now the nearshore is an excellent option, no? Also, I wanted to add also something about the Spanish culture and character. I think the Spanish character applied to digital developers and digital roles, it has very good soft skills. For example, we are generally very flexible. That I think is something very good for software development professions. We are adaptable, and generally also we enter very well and adapt very well to the teams where we start to enter, no? And according to my experience as project staffer, one good thing in the cultural level that appears is that, for example, if you have a company that is 100% Dutch speaker or 100% French speaker, and they start to introduce Spanish developers in their organization, suddenly some magic appears, and is that everyone has to speak English. And no one is native in English. I mean, so everyone is out of their comfort zone, and some empathic connections start to appear, and also efficiency in the communications, a lot in the meetings. They start to become very more efficient, no? So things to consider for this topic.
May I ask something? May I add something?
Yeah.
Just an example, and it's very, very correct what you're saying. When we were doing in 2 years, I was responsible for 450 people, which were in the Netherlands, in France, in Belgium, and 70 people in Spain. Suddenly, when we decided to change our IT systems, what we call to domain-driven architecture, we needed to redesign the teams. So we needed to integrate Spanish people into French teams or Spanish people in Dutch teams, and it magically worked. It magically worked a lot easier than what I thought. And it gave a lot of opportunities. We saw people traveling more and more to Malaga to meet, and these were very, very nice evenings. Today in the early mornings were very nice evenings with these people, yeah.
Cultural diversity fosters creativity. And that's very important what Carol mentioned. It is, I do think, also for Spain, for the future, it is very important that Spain also opens, I'm not going to say open the border, but attracts those non-EU people. And there's a wealth of talent, also in Latin America, but they're very important for the industry in Spain as well. And I know that can sometimes be difficult. For Europeans, it's not difficult, but for non-EU, unless one of your parents is Spanish, it can be a very, very tough issue.
But in this case, just besides the talent, the skills, and all that there's cultural awareness, and also one thing that I always mention, which is the basics of financial education, so that people can know and start budgeting their things, and being aware of the cultural environment they're going into, and then comes the rest. The skills, the needs, then comes the rest. That's something basic that I think that we need to take into consideration.
Very good. You guys already more or less answered my question about retaining talent. It's very important that reskilling, investing. I also think, and that's very typical for Spanish as well, if they feel comfortable, and I think that's for international people the same, if they feel comfortable in the environment, they will, perhaps even that salary is a little bit lower, they will not leave that easily. And I do think that's very important. Also, there are new ways of working, and that's also with the remote working. What we had in the past 10 years ago, we were sometimes sending our STEM people to other destinations in Europe. But quite a few of those Spanish Portuguese, they get a little bit homesick. And I cannot blame them. Spain and Portugal are very attractive destinations, and people want to come back at some point. So there, the remote working revolution has helped as well. Some of these people can work remotely, although sometimes it's difficult to work 100% remotely. But their technology helped a lot in that respect. I want a final question. Yeah, final question for... Okay. Can I ask for the final question? No? One very, very quick question. But it's a little bit for the digital nomads. So when you have that system of startups, scale-ups, etc., and incubators, can that be, I refer to the Spanish one, can that be a good opportunity for digital nomads? Taking in consideration that they work very project-based only for a few months, I address it to all of you. Do you think that that ecosystem of incubators, of startups, is a very interesting environment for, because normally digital nomads, they have their work already, but they could be interested to take on an additional project?
Yeah, definitely. So they want to set up a company in Spain because of the incubator, accelerator, the government loans. Definitely, this is a good place, and you will see a lot of Germans, Austrians, French setting up their first project in Spain because of all this, the combination between the attractive country, lifestyle, blah, 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 and the ability to raise capital from scratch. That's really good. It's more complicated to scale the company, as someone was saying. There's less money for scaling the company than for setting up the company. But the answer is yes. I mean, the ecosystem is quite mature now. There are several things that make attractive for other Europeans to actually running their business from Spain. And you actually see some or many business angels in Spain actually are German, French again. So they are European investing, putting their money to work in Spain because they are connecting to our country, and they are bringing some talent from Europe to set up the companies in Spain.
Okay, very good. Any questions from the audience?
Thank you so much. I would like just one question.
Sure.
I think it's very important to make the difference between the learning from directives to be a directive or to be an executive than to be an entrepreneur. That's absolutely different. Someone said in the beginning the entrepreneur is done or is born or is done. I think I am sure that many entrepreneurs are born. Absolutely, with 15 years they sell shirts after they organize parties, and of course they are entrepreneurs. But I don't know if the Spanish environmental for companies is the best for the entrepreneur, for entrepreneurship. But it's becoming very interesting now, coming digital nomads. And that environment is really more interesting now, and I think it's a really opportunity for Spain, for sure also for digital nomads, but also for Spanish entrepreneurs, for Spanish young professionals, and I think it's important to make another learning system not only for executives, but also for entrepreneurs. I don't know what you think about that. Thank you.
Yeah, yes, I can agree on that, but I would also say that actually it's about time in all our institutions that we train actually everyone to be entrepreneur. And it doesn't need to have only, it's true that and that's the point that you were mentioning before, why ecosystems and everything are important. They're important because actually they connect innovative people together. And when innovative people connect together, they create things. And if they create things, they actually might launch new business, new opportunities, new growth, and probably more prosperity for the country and opportunities to stay for them. But actually, I think that we need to train not only executives to be better entrepreneurs and to be better innovators, we also need to instill that passion for entrepreneurship since young age. And that is something that across Europe, across Europe. I think that is something that, you know, is education is about learning and about researching. But actually, if we put the leg of innovation and entrepreneurship at the third leg to every educational institution, we really are going to put leader of change and possible change makers for the rest of as a continent. So really hopeful for that.
Yeah.
Mr. President.
Yes. Thank you all for this. I have to close the session. I don't know where is the camera. There. They asked me to go there. Well, it's a little bit official. No, let's stay here. I don't have any words to thank you to attend this. I don't know. Following the camera. Okay. Thank you. Sorry. Thanks to the audience to attend these sessions. I don't have any words to thank the organizer. Teresa, the director, and Gwen Wendell, the leader of this forum, and of course all the moderator who prepared and managed these sessions, and all the guests and the speakers who enlightened us with their fantastic knowledge and expertise. I don't have more to say. Of course, it's just some few words that we have learned all today, but we know, you know, audience, wherever you are, that you have some question and you contact the Chamber of Commerce, and we will put you in touch with all these experts, and it will be at least the goal of this session and the goal of the Chamber of Commerce. It's put the people together and make the things happen. So I think that we will enjoy here in situ a lunch with these fantastic people. You audience in the world, it would not be the case, but we thank you for your attention, and I thank you everybody here and our people. Did I forget somebody? No. Thank you all. We close the session. Bye.
Thank you.